This episode of D-Suite Nation is sponsored by Hoffman's Deco Deli. Now at their brand new location at 444 Saginaw Street in the heart of downtown Flint, Heath Hoffman and his staff has provided the Flint community with deliciously fresh food for the past 11 years. Whether you're stopping in for lunch, looking for catering for your corporate event or meeting, or simply stopping in for a hot cup of coffee, Hoffman's has something on the menu for you. Hoffman's Deco Deli, guaranteed to make your day a little fresher.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the D-Suite Nation. We are live from Hoffman's Deco Deli in downtown Flint. Now, I had a roast beef sandwich with, what's that, multi-grain bread, and it was really, really good. I will definitely have another one before I leave. I'm here today by, I have Vince Strange here today from Flint. He's one of the premier trainers, bodybuilders, and he's still in the military, 43 years old, and he's still serving in the military. Vince, how you doing today?
Man, if I complain, I'd make half of it up. Really. Everything's good. I can't complain about too much of anything. Life's good, kids good. You're good. What's up?
I'm good? Oh, thanks. I don't get too many compliments, man. It's nice to hear them once in a while.
Well, I mean,
even if you are lying. No, I'm just kidding. You're getting, I'll tell you what, you're almost at my level. So,
you know, if
I got to give you kudos. You're stepping up. You're stepping up, Vince.
I got to keep trying, you know. I mean, you know, you got your heroes in life, you know. You got to pick up and try to catch up to where they're at, and here we go. Okay.
Well, we have a lot of professional wrestling topics we want to talk about. I know that you love wrestling as much as I do, especially the older stuff that we grew up on.
Hell yeah.
And my first question to you is, what is your first memory of like watching WWF or NWA wrestling? Like, who are the top stars when you first started watching?
My first memory of wrestling was honestly Hulk Hogan fighting the Iron Sheik.
Okay.
Hogan had already had the title, but then I think it was the Iron Sheik's rematch. And towards the end of the match, Iron Sheik got disqualified, and Hogan started beating him. He took off Iron Sheik's boot and was beating him with it.
The boot with the curl?
The boot with the curl. And from that moment on, I've been hooked on wrestling, and I would watch the Superstars in the morning, all the way to, then they had it on Sunday. I can't remember what it was called.
Superstars of Wrestling.
Superstars of Wrestling was Saturday, and then they had
Wrestling Challenge.
Wrestling Challenge was on
Wrestling
Sunday,
Challenge.
all the way to Saturday night's main event.
Yep. And then I remember back then, before it was called Monday Night Raw, it was Prime Time Wrestling.
Yes, it
with
was.
Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan in the booth. Now, here's something that I didn't know about that. When Bobby Heenan and Gorilla used to do those shows back then, they didn't read any cue cards. Everything that they ever said on that show was at the top of their head. That's how talented they were.
I believe it. Bobby Heenan was a genius.
Oh,
Bobby Heenan.
the greatest manager ever. I mean, the Heenan family. I plan on talking about the Heenan family later on. But matter of fact, we'll get into the Heenan family right now since we're in that time frame.
All right.
Because like back then, you had like legit badasses in that family. I mean, like guys that could take care of themselves outside of the ring. They had guys like Kenny Patera, back when he had the blonde hair before he went to prison.
Ken Patera.
He had Big John Studd.
Headlock.
Yeah, the swinging full Nelson.
Oh, man. Those are the good days.
Bundy and Studd.
Bundy and
Studd. And then, you know, a couple years later, you had Andre the Giant. And then he had a guy that's like referred to most as the baddest guy out of all of them was Haku. Baddest meaning like outside of the ring.
Outside the ring.
Because the stories about Haku are unbelievable. Now that we're on Haku, while it's fresh on my mind, because I watch a lot of these shoot interviews. It's like all I do. When I'm not on the road driving, I'm watching shoot interviews where they talk about like life on the road, backstage fights, hanging out at the bar and all this. And Haku, let me see, one of the stories about him, he was in Baltimore, and he was with the boys, and for some reason, I can't figure this out. They said that every time they went to the bar, these regulars would always mess with Haku for some reason. I don't know why, okay? Why you would mess with a 6'4", 310-pound Samoan that can throw spin kicks and lightning fast punches is anyone's guess.
Absolute killing machine.
But he got into it with one of the regulars in there, and they said that he bit his nose off. He bit the guy's nose off. Now, there's another story that Stevie Ray, do you remember Stevie Ray from Harlem Heat?
Yeah.
Booker T's brother? This was in the WCW days when he went by Ming, when his name was Ming.
Oh, indeed.
Yes. They were in Bismarck, North Dakota. Is Bismarck in North Dakota or South Dakota, Dan?
North Dakota.
Okay, they were in Bismarck, North Dakota. And the hotel they were staying at, there was this bar that was on the other side of the parking lot. It was just a local, it was like a cowboy bar where a bunch of cowboys hung out at. And Stevie Ray, back then, he was like always assigned to like go to the bar with these guys, and he had to look after all these, you know, knuckleheads, you know what I'm saying? He had to look after these guys, especially when Ming was there. He said that, he said he got to the bar, he said he sees this scrum going on. There's like a scrum over there. And he said, wait a minute, man, that's where the boys are. He said, there's a scrum going on. He said, Haku actually had a guy off of his feet. You know that Tongan death grip?
Yep.
He actually used that in a real fight. He said he had him in that hole. This was like one of them big cowboy guys. He said this guy looked like he was pissing, shitting, and vomiting out of his ears. And his eyeballs were about to bulge out.
That sounds about right.
And then there was another story in St. Louis where Haku got into it with somebody where he put 7 cops down. They came to the bar trying to break up a fight. He put all 7 of them down. How he survived that is anyone's guess.
I heard Haku, 2 different stories of him. I heard him getting into one of those altercations and throwing somebody from a window. It was like a 2nd or 3rd story window.
I heard that too. I heard that one too.
Haku got into it with another wrestler. I want to say it was Macho Man Randy Savage. And at the time, everyone knew Haku was, of course, you know, you're wrestling strong, but Haku was just strong.
Yeah.
And he got into it, and he went into the shower, picked the guy up by his throat, and had him up against the wall in the shower. The only person that came in there to help him out was Hulk Hogan, and Hulk was afraid to touch him. Hulk didn't even want to touch him. Hulk came in there and said, hey, come on, man, let him go, you know, because no one else wanted to approach him because they didn't want to be part of his beat down too. That man he's scared of.
What are you going to do? What do you do? I mean, what do you do when you see Haku doing that to somebody? I mean, what do you do?
Hope that he puts him down. He ain't going to stop him.
Now, with all that said, they also say about Haku, they say he's the nicest person that you'll ever meet in the world.
Yep.
They said he's the nicest guy ever. They said every single day, they said he's caring, loving. They said he's happy all the time. They said he's like literally the nicest individual that you'll ever meet.
Just didn't cross him.
Now, let me ask you a question here.
You know, you were talking about how the bad people in the Heenan family.
Yeah.
One that you forgot to mention, though, was Rick Rude.
Rick Rude. I forgot Hercules too.
Hercules was strong, but Rick Rude was a body, bad heel, and a face.
Yes.
But he was one of those badasses outside the ring also.
Yes, he was.
People don't talk about.
Harley Race is also a badass. He's usually number 2 on everybody's list. Haku is 95% of the time is number 1, and then it's usually Harley Race, and then so on and so forth down. You throw a Bruiser Brody in there, Paul Orndorff, whatever, but Harley Race also a member of the Heenan family. I think I got thrown off track. Like Haku was on my mind.
Yeah.
And but yeah, now back then, or not even back then, but maybe ever, who was like the best heel? Like what heel made you like really hate the guy? Where like you probably thought he was like that in real life, you just hated the guy.
Man, a heel that I just hated. I was one of those wrestling fans that I like the bad guys because the bad guys did the cool stuff.
Yeah.
The bad guys always did the cool stuff, and they always dominated the matches all to the very end, and then the face would come out and pull off the win.
Well, maybe hate wasn't a good word. Maybe like who played the part of the heel the best?
King Kong Bundy.
5. 5.
King Kong Bundy.
King Kong Bundy. I would have to say, and he was actually my favorite wrestler back then because I also liked the bad guys where they mess with people. Was Roddy Piper.
Oh,
now, I'm talking about back when he had short hair, Bob Orton with the cast, the early years, the Rock and Wrestling Connection Rowdy, right? Not when he had long hair and all that crap. I'm talking about his early years. That I thought he played a heel probably just as good as anybody.
He played his heel. He really peaked his heel heading up to WrestleMania when it was him and was it Paul Orndorff?
Orndorff was his tag partner.
And it was Hogan versus
Hogan and Mr. T.
Yep. He was healing real good back in Piper's Pit too.
Well, I think it was easy to be a heel back then because there was a real life dislike for Mr. T. You know, him, Orndorff, and Orton did not like Mr. T. Now, something I found out that happened during that WrestleMania is Mr. T almost didn't show up. he showed up to the Madison Square Garden, and he had like an entourage. Like he probably had like 85 people with him or something like that. Maybe not that many, I don't remember. But they wouldn't let the entourage in. And he threatened that if they can't come in, I'm not coming in. Luckily, Hulk Hogan was standing over there when all this happened. He said, look, he told whoever, he said, look, I'm going to pay for everybody. He said, I'll take care of this. He's got to be here. Mr. T wasn't even going to show up. And the thing about Mr. T is Paul Orndorff and Piper, they whooped his butt so severely that he could hardly get out of the ring.
They pull off Mr. T's training belt and beat him with it.
And beat him with it. They whipped him with it, didn't they?
I remember like it was yesterday.
I remember.
It was a white belt. T came out there, he had on a tank top, skinny little tights on.
Yeah.
And they took his belt off and whooped up on him with it. I remember that like it was yesterday.
Well, the whooping I remember, and this may be the same one you're talking about. It was Saturday night's main event. It was a boxing match with Cowboy Bob Orton. They called him Boxing Bob Orton for that main event. And it ended up, I don't know if it was a disqualification. I think they gave Mr. T the win, but they ended up bum rushing him. And Orton had him in a hold or some kind of hold against the turnbuckle, and Piper was whipping him with the belt. He was whipping him with, that's the whipping that I remember. And they just didn't like him, man, because he didn't pay any dues, and he had his own dressing room every time he showed up to an event, and they resented that. They could have beaten him a lot worse than they did. He could have got beaten a lot worse.
Even with wrestling nowadays, you get the people that resent it. If you listen now, if you've watched wrestling nowadays, you listen to the crowds, and the crowds will resent them bringing in celebrities and trying to push a celebrity on like he's really going to come into the match and really beat somebody. Yeah. You get those guys in there, like right now, you're getting in today's wrestling, you're getting a little bit of pushback because they're trying to promote a Cain Velasquez versus Brock Lesnar for Crown Jewel. They're trying to push that, and you kind of hear the crowd kind of boo a little bit in the background. So, but paying your dues, kind of like how the like in today's world, how they really rejected Roman Reigns so hard. They rejected Roman Reigns so hard because they tried to push him through. He's related to The Rock, so they just try to push him through faster. And the crowd doesn't, the fans don't appreciate that because, like you said, some of these people have dues, and then some of the ones just have a natural, they just catch the crowd's imagination. People see the crowd are like, oh, they just instantly fall in love with them. Roman Reigns, they kind of had to shove him down their throats to push that on. But as you were going, I kind of.
No, you're right about that. I actually like Roman Reigns.
I do too.
I really liked him when the Shield are together. I like it when those guys are together. I love it when they walk to the ring from the crowd, where they start like way up there and they walk down. That's cool. No one's ever done that before.
That music hits.
Yeah, that music hits. Yeah, they get a good pop when that happens. Now, another thing about Piper at WrestleMania 2, remember him and T had that boxing match.
Yep.
And Mr. T was supposed to knock him out. And Roddy didn't want to be knocked out by Mr. T because in one of his documentaries, he said that if I would have let Mr. T take me out like that, he said I would have shamed every wrestler in the back. That's why it ended the way it did, where he pushed the referee and he slammed Mr. T and then he just jumped on him. He didn't want to get knocked out by him. That's how it ended. Now that's when he kind of the crowd kind of started to like him after that, because when he left the ring, when him and Ace Orton left the ring, you can hear some chants in the crowd, Roddy, Roddy, and then shortly after that is when the Adrian Adonis feud came about.
Yep.
But like those early WrestleManias, 1, 2, 3, and 4 particular, man. What are some of your favorite WrestleMania moments from the early years?
You can't. I mean, the number one has to be Hogan and Giant.
Hogan and Andre the Giant.
And
were you there?
Andre the Giant. I wasn't there.
I was there.
I watched that because my brother used to. Years ago, you didn't have all the cable and stuff like that. So my brother would get on the TV. He would get on the tuner. Then he would take a butter knife and stick it in the tuner, and he had it down where we could watch HBO and pay-per-views and things like that. And that that little squiggly line, that little squiggly line. If this is your TV, that little squiggly line was way over here.
Oh,
so you could darn near see the entire match. And every so often it would squiggle in, and he'd fix it and get it to go. So we watched pay-per-views illegally for years.
Yeah.
Well, until Comcast came through and started giving you the little push button boxes, that screwed up everything.
We had a scrambler back then, one of those illegal scramblers.
Yep.
I think it's along those same lines that you were talking about. But like yourself, I didn't miss a wrestling or boxing pay-per-view. It was all free on our illegal scrambler that somebody hooked up for us. All right, but, this is what I remember about Wrestlemania 2. I remember it being at 3 different venues, but I remember that it was on closed circuit. It was at featured it at the IMA Sports Arena. I remember that Wrestlemania 2 though, it was like on a Wednesday. Like, like when you watch like a boxing pay-per-view now, it's always on Saturday, and when you watch wrestling now, it's always on Sunday. I remember, the only reason that I remember that it was during the week, because I remember I had a headache at school that day. I don't know why I had a bad headache. I went home early, and I remember my mom saying, you probably have a headache because you're thinking about the matches tonight. that WrestleMania 2 was like in the middle of the week on a school week.
See, that's almost at a point that I don't even remember. But if you say some things, it'll probably catch up to me, because I remember when the first WrestleMania, but I don't remember exactly that 3 venue part though. So you're bringing something to me.
Yeah. Another thing, William the Refrigerator Perry was in that pay-per-view. He was in that big battle royal. Remember they had the big beef with Big John Studd?
Yep.
And that battle royal was in Chicago. That was like in the middle of the pay-per-view, and the Bears had just won the Super Bowl like a couple months before that WrestleMania, because that WrestleMania 2 was in 1986, and the Bears had won the Super Bowl in January of 1986. It was the '85 Bears, but they won in January '86, and they had had a few NFL football players in there. Had Russ Francis, Jimbo Covert, had a couple other guys in there, but the Fridge was in there. And then him and Big John Studd end up tussling. He ended up knocking Studd all the way back to the corner.
Didn't he eliminate Studd with a 3-point stance?
Well, here's what happened. After he knocked Studd into the corner and the crowd was going nuts, Studd said, one more time. He said, come on again. And the Fridge got in a 3-point stance. He went at Studd, but this time, instead of going head up with him, Studd hit him with an elbow. And the Fridge was stunned. And then he flipped him over the ropes, and all the crowd was booing so loud. And then the Fridge was looking at Studd. He was like, "Okay, you got me, man. Good match, And Studd's looking at him like, "What?" He's like, "Come on, man, you got me, good match." And then remember, he flipped him over the top rope.
Over the top.
But yeah, that was Andre the Giant ended up winning that battle royal, because it was between him and the Hart Foundation were the last 3 in there. He had Bret Hart like this with one arm, and first he threw the anvil out by his beard, threw him over the top rope. And then he had Bret Hart like right here and threw him onto Neidhart, and Andre the Giant ended up winning it. I could literally recite and talk about that entire WrestleMania. And then, of course, the next WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Silver. I cannot believe that you were not at that one.
Man.
But fortunately, I was one of the fortunate kids that got to go to that one. And one of my favorite matches on there, obviously, was Hogan and Andre. Obviously, was a great match. Steamboat and Savage was a good match. We'll talk about that one in a minute. But I'd have to say, other than those 2, my favorite match was Billy Jack Haynes and Hercules. That was the second match. It was the Battle of the Full Nelsons.
Yep. Oh, Billy Jack. People forget about Billy Jack.
Billy
Haynes.
Jack.
He used to come to the ring with Oregon on his trunks.
Yes.
Yep.
He had the Oregon trunks. He had the big black hat with the yellow and green, looked like a headband or something around it. Mm-hmm. He's a proud Oregon guy, and he's also one of those legit badasses that we talked about earlier. I mean, he wasn't a member of the Heenan family, those ones we were talking about, but Billy Jack Haynes was one of those guys.
Country strong looking guy.
Yeah. And then you had like a mountain of muscle, with him and Hercules, and when they would tie up and all that. Mm-hmm. They both ended up. It was a double count out, so they both ended up getting counted out. And then what ended up happening was Bobby Heenan stepped on the apron, and Billy Jack Haynes went after him, and then Hercules hit him from behind, and then he grabbed the chain, and he was busting him with the chain. I mean, you could see blood, it wasn't one of those where they take the razor and cut themselves. No, it was oozing out.
They were hardcore.
Like a fire hose.
They were hardcore back then. They would sit there you'd have some of the wrestlers who would have their little razors inside of their band.
Yeah.
But then you had some of them who were just like, go ahead and bust me. And that was one of those instances. And that's well, you could tell with those guys back then. I mean, when you look at Dusty Rhodes, and they had nothing but the scar tissue.
All Abdul the Butcher had all that stuff on his head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and then after all that, when he looked like he was bleeding to death, and the match was over, then he slapped him in the full Nelson and just kind of threw him down.
Insult to injury.
So, like Jesse the Body Ventura said, he said both of them lost the match, but Hercules won the war.
Yeah.
Because Billy Jack laid there a bloody mess. What was another good match in that WrestleMania? Junkyard Dog and Harley Race, King Harley Race, the loser must bow down match.
Oh man, shoot! You're reminding me of things now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, hell, WrestleMania, we were babies then.
Yeah.
But your memory of it is fantastic.
I don't have a life, Vince. I don't have a life. This is what I do, man.
You know, when you had brought up the Steamboat. And the Steamboat and Savage. That war that carried on all the way to WrestleMania. I mean, I still remember him putting Steamboat across the guardrail, coming off the top rope and hitting him
with the bell. Hitting him with the bell. See, back in those days, though,
that was good wrestling.
See, back in those days, like now, there's a pay-per-view every month.
Yep.
But back then, like WrestleMania was the only pay-per-view, so sometimes those feuds would last like 8 to 10 months.
Yeah.
You know, and so there was like a big build-up, and then when it finally happened, it was just so exciting to see. But those two guys, you're talking about two great athletes at the top of their game, in their prime, going full speed for 22 minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be honest, that match stole the show, probably at WrestleMania 3. To this day, that's the best match I've ever seen. In terms of, now when I say best match I've ever seen, I mean, it was just like a regular wrestling match. It really wasn't like foreign objects or nothing. I mean, he did try to grab the bell, but George the Animal Steel grabbed it from him. But no, it was just, nobody can do what they do.
Yeah. I mean, back then, you know, that's when you had more of what they refer to as technical wrestlers.
Yes.
Now, you know, like, if you look at some of the guys, like you had mentioned Roman Reigns, even John Cena, those guys are just, they rely on power. It's picking you up and throwing you all over the place. You didn't have any step over toe holds and just the technical stuff, like the Bret Hart wrestling.
Yeah.
To me, like Bret Hart,
the excellence of execution.
The way he wrestled, that he put his wrestling style put him to me as one of my top 5 wrestlers. Easily, just off of the technical aspect of it.
Stu Hart's dungeon was no joke.
He punched out so many superstars out of there.
I'm going to tell you something about that dungeon. One story that comes to mind is Chris Jericho. Now, Chris Jericho is actually a badass in real life. I don't know if you would really think so, but this is what I heard happen with him and Bill Goldberg.
Yeah.
Now, I'm talking about the Bill Goldberg that was like 174-0. I'm not talking about like now where he can barely walk, his back's always holding his back. Can't even body slam anybody now. His joints are so messed up. I'm talking about 174-0 Goldberg. Back in those days. Mm-hmm. Now this is Chris Jericho I'm talking about. They were in the back, and I don't know what they were arguing about, but this is the way the story was described. Chris Jericho was sitting down, and Bill Goldberg got upset about something, and he was kind of like talking over him. And Chris Jericho was like, "Look, man, I don't want to do this, man. I don't want no trouble with you. Just get off me." And Bill kept on, thought he was going to intimidate him or something. Mm-hmm. And Jericho's looking around like, "Somebody get this maniac off of me, please. Okay, I'm not doing this right now." Goldberg ended up jumping on Jericho. What ended up happening was, this is what I heard. They ended up, both of them were like face down on the ground, but Jericho had him in a front face lock. He had him in a leverage hold, though. He wasn't really like using any power. He had him in a leverage hold. Mm-hmm. And he asked him like, "Look, I don't want to do this anymore. Are you done?" And Goldberg was trying to punch him more. And Jericho's looking around like, "Look, listen, I'm not going to let him go until he says he's done." Mm-hmm. But he put Goldberg down very easily from what I was told. Yep. So Chris Jericho is actually, he's from the dungeon.
Yeah.
So he's one of the last, I think, graduates from that dungeon because he's from Canada. But yeah, he's a legitimate badass too.
I thought you could be right. But I thought that Neidhart's daughter Natalia came out of the dungeon. I thought she was about the last one that came out.
I think she was the last one. Uh-huh. But Jericho was like one of the like bottom 5 last ones.
Yes.
He's one of the last ones because obviously like the Hart Foundation, the Dynamite Kid, like all them old wrestlers from the 80s came before Jericho. Mm-hmm. Natalia did come after Jericho, but she's the only female to graduate from that dungeon, and people,
Benoit.
and people, yeah, oh yeah, Benoit. What do you think? What do you think about Benoit, man?
Sad. I mean,
That is, yeah.
sad because Chris Benoit. Well, he reminded me a lot of the Dynamite Kid.
Yeah, well, that's who he patterned his career after.
They were both short, stocky, well built, and could
he even
just
walked
suplex
like
you.
him. He even walked like the Dynamite
That
Kid.
little snap suplex.
Snap
too.
suplex. Yeah.
He was like the second coming of Dynamite Kid, and that's a sad story. Everyone knows that story, but that's terrible.
That was a very sad story. You know, guys like Chris Benoit and Ricky Steamboat, those two guys, there's one thing that those two have in common. I think every wrestling fan in the world liked both of them. I don't think they ever had a fan that said, "Nah, I don't like him. I don't like Ricky Steamboat. I don't like." Everybody loved Benoit, and everybody loved Steamboat. Now, when they did his autopsy, Benoit's autopsy, they said that his brain was that of a 85-year-old man with Alzheimer's. So he was.
His when he did his report, he had brain damage. He had just signs, just terrible signs of steroid abuse. He was taking. His glands were so messed up that he was still taking testosterone constantly because he had destroyed his own production itself. So I mean, he was, that's part of that old wrestling lifestyle. Those guys were getting they get aches and pains. They would do steroids and cocaine and go out party the next night and just that's why you see a lot of those guys.
They were on the road like 310 days out of the year.
Yeah.
Away from their families and Arn Anderson had said about Chris Benoit. He said, well, this was before all this stuff happened. He said, Chris Benoit is the guy that I wish that he could have been one of the horsemen when we first started this. He said he loved Chris Benoit. We all loved him. That was very sad.
Yeah.
But another badass.
Another badass. You just said it. I was a huge Arn Anderson fan.
Oh yeah.
Arn Anderson. He came up with so many different creations and moves and things.
The spine buster. Spine buster.
Man.
I mean, he would be like way up in the air and like real fast, turn around and
it was smooth. And you see other guys try it, but this, I don't know what his technique was, but how he would get underneath them, and it was just all one continuous motion.
It was one continuous motion. He would turn, but then as he's falling down, his forearm is like into your chest, so he's like getting that extra speed and power. And when I think of the Four Horsemen, I think when they were at their peak, the best Four Horsemen that I ever seen was not with Ole Anderson. I know that was the original and all that, but that's not the best Four Horsemen. The best Four Horsemen is when it was Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Barry Windham. When Barry Windham was one of the Horsemen. Because remember, they had all the belts.
Yep.
Remember, they wore all the belts.
They had all the belts.
Ric Flair was the heavyweight champion. Arn Anderson was the TV champion, which seemed like for 20 years he had that belt. He was the TV champion. Him and Tully were the tag team champions. And Barry Windham was the U.S. They had all the belts.
There was a time
at the same time.
Yeah. Do you remember the Western States Championship?
Yeah, I remember that.
I think Barry had that one too.
He did have that one. Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah,
and
I forgot about that.
They were the best. You get a wrestler here and there that had real good mic skills, but then you had every single horseman had fantastic mic skills.
Yes.
Every single one could go up there and talk, and you're just like, oh man, they're really bringing it. That's good stuff when they can talk it. Because you get some of these guys out here now, they go out there and they just look like little zombies, and they just horrible mic skills.
How do you train to have good mic skills? Is it like you either have it or you don't?
I think it's you either have it or you don't.
Who are some of the guys that had like the best mic skills?
Hogan had good mic skills just because he could talk continuously and be talking about nonsense. I mean, he's talking about going down 20 leagues under the sea, hanging and banging with Davy Jones, and crazy stuff. Ric Flair, woo, he's alligator shoes, hard for me to hold him down. But Arn Anderson, but then you'd have those guys, and Arn Anderson would talk about something completely different. He'd come in there and he'd break down how he's going to beat you up in the most eloquent way with big words and everything. And his delivery, Arn was really good behind the mic. But the best behind the mic has to be The Rock.
I knew you were going to say The Rock.
Has to be The Rock.
Yeah,
just because
even Dan agrees. Yeah, Dan agrees with that.
He was funny. And he was good. I think of him when he was making fun of Kane, and he says, "I'm going to beat you." And he went out. Rock came out there. He made fun of Undertaker. Said he had a 12-pound head. He said that Big Show called him Big Show.
Yeah.
And but when he sat there and said, "I'm going to come down there and you're going to be looking at me with stars in your eyes and piss running down your leg," and you could do nothing but laugh at him.
Now I remember.
Anybody that's turned from heel to face like The Rock did?
Yeah. Now there's a couple people that come to mind. Like sometimes you don't have to be like that great of a wrestler. Like I thought Santino Marella was great on the mic. Remember him that did that funny walk?
Santino Marella.
He was funny on the mic. I thought Triple H had pretty good mic skills.
Yep.
But the most convincing thing that I ever seen on a mic was the day that Hulk Hogan turned on WCW when he showed up at Bash at the Beach with the Outsiders. Remember they had the mystery third partner?
Yep.
Remember Hulk Hogan came out in his red and yellow, and they thought that he was going to help like Luger, Sting, and Macho Man.
Yeah, because they were mopping those guys up.
He got in the ring, the Outsiders cleared the ring, and then he leg dropped. I think it was Savage. And then the crowd turned on him. Then he got on the microphone, and that's when he said, I've been coming out here for 2 years. He said, the reception I got when I came out here, he said, this is the way he said it too. He said, "You fans can stick it, brother." And I was like, "Ooh, man." Yeah, but the way he told them that they could stick it, I'm thinking to myself, that's like real life. That's like probably been building up for years with him, and it's finally coming out. That's like real stuff there, man.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was pretty convincing. Another guy good on the mic was Roddy Piper in his bad guy years that I was talking about. Especially leading up to Superfly Snuka after he busted him in the head with that coconut. You remember that?
Yeah.
Snuka actually was in a daze for a few minutes during that. That was a real coconut he hit him with. And then the only thing about back then was man, they sure, well, he wouldn't be able to get away with this today, but man, he got away with a lot of racial stuff he used to say, like when Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas were in there. And
they were so big.
Yeah, he was good on the mic. Obviously, Flair. I don't know if we mentioned Ric Flair. He was great on the mic.
Top
Jesse
five.
Ventura on the broadcast when him and Gorilla Monsoon. Bobby Heenan was good in the booth too. There is nothing like Mr. Perfect, kind of underrated. He had good mic skills too because he was kind of funny. The Doctor of Style, Slick, was good on the mic.
Turn out the lights, the party's over. I tell you who has some great skills is Jerry Lawler.
Yes.
Jerry Lawler is funny as it gets when he's doing commentary. He's hilarious.
Do you remember when you had that heart attack on Raw?
Yeah.
On live TV? That was scary, man.
He's back. Yeah, well, he's back at it. So
yeah,
that's blessings to him.
Yeah. Do you remember Dr. D, David Schultz?
Blonde mullet.
Yes.
I think he used to wear. He often wore green trunks. Didn't he have like a little shamrock on his trunks, like right over here in the little corner area?
Well, before Piper wrestled in the WWF, he was his manager. He was Dr. D's manager. He's the one that slapped that reporter.
Geraldo Rivera.
No, John Stossel.
Wasn't John Stossel?
He looked like Geraldo Rivera.
They both had them big stupid mustaches.
He looked just like Geraldo Rivera. As a matter of fact, I told Dan earlier, I said Stossel looked just like Geraldo. But it's that guy, though.
Because he was in a hallway, and he went up to him talking about wrestling's fake, and he starts slapping him down the hallway.
I heard a couple of things on this, okay? First, it was Cowboy Bob Orton was talking about this. He was one of the guys that was there when it happened. He told Stossel, because Dr. D and Stossel got together like in a room before they went out on the air. This was a 2020 interview. This was not like part of a wrestling show. This was on 2020 ABC. And he told Stossel, he said, "You can ask me anything you want." He said, "I don't care if it's about my personal life. You can ask me stuff about my kids, my wife, ask me anything you want. Do not ask me if wrestling's fake." He said, "You understand that?" He said, "You got it. I won't ask you if wrestling's fake." Now, I knew who Dr. D was back then. They get on camera in the hallway there that you were talking about. What is the first thing that Stossel says to Dr. D. David Schultz? He said, I think this is fake and you're a fraud. and right after he said that, bam, open hand slap, dropped him. Dropped him. He said, what do you think of that, boy? He said, is that fake, boy? And he got up, bam, slapped him. He said, is that fake, boy? And then he started running down the hallway. Now, Dr. D said, his version of the story is, he said that Vince McMahon he didn't tell him to do that, but he told him that Stossel was going to be in town, and he wanted him to do an interview with him. He said he's been putting down our business and this and that. He said, I want you to set him straight. I want you to stay in character, is what he told. This is what Dr. D says. Vince McMahon denies that it ever happened, but he did supposedly what Vince McMahon told him to do, but he ended up Vince McMahon fired him over that because Vince got sued big time by Stossel, because Stossel, said that he, lost hearing in his right ear or something like that. And now Stossel sued them because he said Dr. D is a lethal weapon. Now, let me ask you something. How are you a lethal weapon if I think you're a fake and a fraud?
Kind of
he deserved to get, I can't punch somebody that hard, much less slap somebody like that.
I think you can punch somebody that hard.
I could.
I think you could. I remember your tough man days.
Oh, God. Yeah, I won money. Somebody dared me to do that, and I did it, and I won a little bit of money over that.
That's going to be on episode 4.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Oh, God. Were you there for that?
No, I wasn't there. I heard about it after the fact. I heard because that was right around the time when they start doing tough man.
This guy was 6'10", 385 pounds, and he didn't even look like he was fat. He was from Canton, Michigan. He was like the biggest. He looked like what did he look like? He looked like El Gigante, the wrestler.
Oh, goodness.
But thicker. But a thicker version. I'm like, what the hell? Because they were matching people by their sizes. And I was the second biggest there. And this guy was literally 6'10", 385.
Luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Luck of the draw.
I had in high school, I had dislocated my shoulder in practice one time, my senior year. And my shoulder frequently pops out. Like, if you and I were like wrestle on the ground, there's a good chance that my shoulder could pop out. And I got to pop it back in. Have you ever had a dislocated shoulder?
No, thank God.
Okay. I'm going to tell you how that feels the first time. The first time that you dislocate your shoulder, your bone will be like sticking out like this. They have to pop it back in place. Now, I'm going to tell you this. You better hope that there's no women around looking at this, because you will cry. Unless, if there's women there, you won't. It's the worst pain ever. Maybe second worst to when you tore your Achilles. Oh. It's the second worst.
I don't hear that.
Yeah, I know. I remember when you tore your Achilles.
Man.
How did you tear your Achilles?
Well, it depends on which one you're talking about, because
I seen you at Sharky's 5 years ago.
Yes, you did. That was my second Achilles.
Oh my God.
That was my second Achilles.
Was it the same foot or the other one?
Well, I've torn them both. The first one I tore the first one in 2003, and we were getting ready to mold. We were getting ready to deploy. This was right after 9/11, and we were over in Fort McCoy. And for PT, we were I guess you could call it organized PT, and we were playing football. And I was playing quarterback, and we were going back and forth. It was 2 platoons versus 2 platoons, and we were tied up. It was 34 apiece, and then somebody called and said chow formation. So when they call chow formation, you don't want to wait around because there might not be food free after that. And I gave another guy the ball. I said, hey, I can outrun everybody out here, so I'm gonna do a 3-step drop. You throw me the ball, and I'll just outrun everybody, and I'll score the final touchdown, and we'll win. Ran out, planted, turned, and pushed. That thing popped, and I went face forward. And I don't know if anyone's ever talked about how it feels, but it felt just like a sledgehammer. Or I actually thought it was a guy trying to tackle me running full speed, and I thought he stomped out the back of my heel.
Isaiah Thomas said that's the worst pain he's ever felt.
Yeah, easily. I don't know if it's the sensation of the Achilles shooting up the back of your heel, but it feels like you're walking on your tippy toes. If you feel like you're walking on your tippy toes, a couple people said they heard it pop. We went to the hospital, and the very first thing they do is they'll put you on a table, and what they'll do, they'll let your foot hang down like this, and what happens, they'll squeeze it, and the natural muscle will make the foot draw. If that thing's not connected, it doesn't budge, and mine didn't budge. So 3 days later, I'm in surgery. That was the first one. The second one was
the football game was the first one.
That was the first one. And weird enough, if this isn't signs and omens, the second one. So this one I did. The first one I did was on April 18th, 2003. I ruptured the right one April 28th, 2013. So it was 10 days. It was 10 years and 10 days to the date. I think it was 3 days after Kobe tore his. And I was playing basketball. Fast break, stop to pivot and push the ball.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, it's that little push and the torque. Popped them both. So.
Well, let me see. 2023 is in 4 years, so take that month off, the month of April.
Bubble wrap. I'm gonna
yeah, do the John Travolta, boy in a plastic bubble. Put yourself in a
bubble wrap, and I'm not doing anything.
So how does both of your Achilles heels feel now? How do they feel now? Do they ever get back to 100%?
They're actually, I think of Eric Ryan now when he was picking on me earlier about calf training.
I noticed that.
What's funny is that my calves and everything are stronger now because I train them harder than before I had the injuries.
Okay.
They're still strong. I don't feel any kind of weakness in them. They're just thicker because they had to go through and they had to go through and tie them all together with mesh and stuff. So like your average Achilles maybe is that thick. Mine is more like this thick. It sticks out and they feel different, but they don't react differently.
Now, do you ever have times where, say, like you're playing with the kids, maybe shooting around in the driveway or do you ever have that fear that, man, if I make a wrong movement again, that my Achilles is going to pop again? Is there a fear, like a natural fear now?
It's a fear because, like, my daughter now, she's starting to like basketball, and there's parts of me that want to go around and shoot around with her, and at the same time, I sit there and think, is like, if I'm that person that if I start shooting around, I'm gonna want to start running, I'm gonna start wanting to do layups and things, and yeah, there's a little bit of fear in that, but. Like as for weightlifting and things, no, I don't think just those movements will ever make it pop again.
Now we were just talking about wrestling for quite a while. Mm-hmm. Now, most people that are wrestling fans are also boxing fans, us included. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll ask you again, like I asked you about wrestling. Who are some of your first heroes in the boxing ring?
Oh man, Sugar Ray, Hagler,
Leonard, not Mosley, for the boxing impaired. He's talking about Leonard.
Sugar Ray Leonard. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Hitman,
yeah,
Hitman
the
Hearns.
Fabulous Four.
Yeah,
Roberto Duran and those three, the Fab Four.
Those guys. You can't overlook Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Did you ever see that fight with George Foreman? And being live right now, I'm drawing a blank.
Is it the young George Foreman or the old George?
The young George Foreman, and Mike Lyle. There's a boxer named Mike Lyle.
Ron Lyle.
Ron Lyle, that's
Ron
it.
Lyle.
And they hit each other with the biggest bombs in boxing history. It was nothing but heavy shots and knockdowns.
They both were getting dropped.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that on the classics, yes.
I got more respect for George Foreman after that fight because Ron hit him with a punch and he went head first. It wasn't like he collapsed down. He went head into the mat and then his whole body went down and he went down like he was dead. For him to get back up and knock Lyle out again, it's like that dude. The way
that those guys fought back then, they could fight today. If they were 30 years old now, they could fight today because they were big and powerful. Back in those days, Muhammad Ali said that Ernie Shavers was the hardest guy that ever hit him. A guy named Ernie Shavers. He said how did Ali word it? He said, he hit me so hard, it woke my kinfolk in Africa. He hit me so hard. And, I did see that Ron Lyle and George Foreman fight. Another good fight, just like that, around that same time period, was Ken Norton and Larry Holmes, when Larry Holmes won the heavyweight belt. Because remember, Holmes was the champ from 78 to 85. He won it from Ken Norton. And they had a fight just like Foreman and Ronnie Lyle.
I only saw highlights of that fight, but I do remember that fight.
You would enjoy it. Well, if you're going to watch it, watch like the last 5 rounds. That was back when they were still fighting 15 rounds. That they were just they were doing it Ronnie Lyle and George Foreman style. Now, Sugar Ray Leonard, he wasn't my favorite of the Fab Four, but I respect all four of them guys the same. The one thing that I really appreciated about Ray Leonard was he did an interview one time. And when I say recently, it was like within the last 5 or 6 years. He did an interview, and they were talking about both Tommy Hearns fights. And they talked about the one in 1989, the one where it was a draw, and Leonard got dropped twice. He told the guy, he said, look, he said, Tommy won that fight. He said, I can admit stuff like that. He said, in my heart, he said, Tommy won that fight. He should have been awarded the winner. There's not too many fighters that would say that in a draw, where they say, yeah, I think Vince won or whatever. No. Leonard actually said Hearns won that fight. So I got to give him credit for that. Now, the Fab Four, did you ever see that knockout when Hearns knocked Duran out?
Oh, man. I'm going to have to revisit that one.
That fight right there, between those four, because they all fought each other. And sometimes they fought each other multiple times. You know how they say styles make fights, right?
Yep.
Okay. Duran can't mess with that style because the entire first round he was getting knocked around like a rag doll because Hearns was just too long and he was connecting. And after the first round when the bell rang, you know, Duran went to the wrong corner. And any boxer will tell you it's not natural to walk to the wrong corner.
No.
If you walk to the wrong corner, you're in a daze and you're hurt.
You've been peppered up pretty good.
And then in the second round, the knockout, the actual knockout, it was a one-punch knockout. He had him against the ropes, and then when he hit him, it's like you could hear his teeth click or his jaw click, and he was out on his feet already after that punch. He got hit, and he was already out, and he fell like Greg Valentine or Ric Flair, like face first, like boom. And he got up, and he looked like you couldn't tell if he was knocked out or drunk. You couldn't tell because Roberto Duran he always looked like he was drunk. He just got a natural look about him like he's drunk, and he knocked him out. Now, the best fight out of all of them, Hagler and Hearns. Round one. The greatest round in boxing history.
Man, that's that one, their first round, and Hagler and Hearns' first round.
That's what I'm talking about, Hagler and Hearns.
Oh, I'm sitting there thinking you said Hagler and Leonard. That Hagler and Hearns,
Round
their
one.
first round was just they threw more punches in that round than you see in a whole fights.
Yes.
Great punches. Great punches.
And these were like guys at the time, they didn't like each other. These guys hated each other.
They fought with a true sense to hurt.
That fight, before the fight, the build-up, it was called the War. It was called the War because you know how some fights, like you got the Rumble in the Jungle, the Thriller in Manila. That was called the War. And that first round, man, who won that round? I ask everybody that. Who do you think won that round? If you were scoring it.
If I had to score it, Hearns.
Yeah, well, I can understand that because Hagler, I don't know if his nose was broke, but he had that big gash.
Hagler was busted up.
He was busted up. They almost stopped it, but the doctor said it's because, well, it wasn't above his eye. It was like the bridge of the nose, and it wasn't affecting his vision. So the doctor said it's not affecting his sight.
Yep.
Let it go. Now, when I was asked that question, who won that round? I'm thinking to myself, I think Hearns won the beginning of the round. I said, but Hagler definitely finished stronger. He finished the round stronger. So I would always give it to the guy who finishes stronger. I would have to say Marvin Hagler.
And that's how boxing is.
If you ask 100 people that, 50 people will say Hearns, 50 will say Hagler.
If you take 2/3 of that fight, if you take 2/3 of a round, and you get one person that's actually winning that, but you take that last third, and if you show that last round and you end with a flurry, a lot of times that's when they refer to it as winning the round.
Yeah.
Is off of that last minute flurry, and they're like, oh, he finished strong, you know, and that's the freshest thing on the judge's mind.
Well, because after Hearns, after he had that gash in his nose, I think there was like 10 seconds to go in the round. He hit Hearns with a straight right, and he made him moonwalk like 12 feet backwards against the ropes, almost dropped him. That was just a hell of a fight. And then Hagler was able to land that right hand in round 3. What a great fight, man.
When you have fights like that, you're not getting 12 rounds of that. You're not getting 12 rounds. That's going to get ended soon. You're not going to get just a whole night of just exactly. You're not going to get 12 rounds of that kind of performance.
Did you see what Deontay Wilder was quoted as saying about Mike Tyson?
Yep. That was
What do you think of that?
I was going to ask you what your opinion was.
Okay, you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Paper, scissors, rock.
Okay, 1, 2. One more time. 1, 2, 3.
When I heard that, it made me think of a couple different things. Okay, Wilder is like 6'7".
Yeah.
He's tall, which means every single time he's trying to punch Mike Tyson, you're not going to score too many knockouts punching somebody in the forehead. I've only seen somebody get knocked out by the forehead punch, and that was Evander Holyfield. He fought a guy, his last name was Hernandez, and I remember him punching him square in the forehead, knocking him out. That's rare. But it don't add up, because you're way up here, Mike Tyson's out here, and then when Mike Tyson gets into his crunching phase, I mean, you're not gonna knock out Mike Tyson just because of the angle of your punches. He might be able to sneak in an uppercut or something, but he makes me think of how Mike Tyson fought Razor Ruddock. And Mike Tyson hit Razor Ruddock with so many hard body shots. I mean, he was hitting body shots. I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, you hear the crowd going, oh.
Yeah.
I think if Tyson in his prime and Wilder in his prime fought right now, he would beat his body to breaks, and he would get him with that classic Mike Tyson combo, because Mike Tyson's working them guts, and he's going to bring that hand down, because he's going to hit him with one of those things that's going to make him poop his pants.
Yeah.
He's going to come down, hit that one, just boom, boom, that's that boom, boom.
The right to the body followed by a right uppercut.
Yes. His mouthpiece would end up in the second row. Mike Tyson would be walking back, and Deontay Wilder would be destroyed. So for him to even think that he could do that to Mike, for him, if he said he could beat Mike Tyson's one thing. To say you're going to knock out Mike Tyson, come on, man.
Well, here's what I thought about that. In my opinion, first of all, you're 0-1 against guys with the name Tyson in their name, okay?
Right.
Because I thought Tyson Fury beat him. The way that I scored it, I did have Wilder winning the 2 rounds where he dropped Fury, and then I had him winning 9 of the Fury. I had Fury winning 9 of the 10. I think I scored the first round even. And then I had Fury winning 9 and Wilder winning 2. So like I said, so far you're 0-1 against guys named Tyson. Now, when you say prime, the way that I look at it, okay, prime Tyson, I don't go by age, okay? Like you can't, like somebody said, well, he was in his prime when he fought Buster Douglas, okay?
Yep.
Taking nothing away from Buster Douglas, okay? First of all, if you look at Mike Tyson when he walked to the ring in that Buster Douglas fight, I still thought that he was going to knock Buster in the first round. I still thought he was going to knock him out in the first round. But I remember me and my brother-in-law at the time, we were watching that fight. If you look at that again when they get to the ring, when Tyson's in the ring, you tell me, now you're a personal trainer. You know when people are in shape or not. I want you to tell me, send me a text message later, and you tell me, was Mike, did he look like he was in shape for that fight?
I remember the fight. I remember the fight as it is. I remember how he was on his heels when he hit him with that final punch. And when Mike Tyson came out there, Mike Tyson wasn't physically looking sharp. He did not look physically sharp at all in that fight.
And then you look at Buster Douglas in the other corner. He's jumping up and down. He looks in good condition. He looks ready to go.
He's been in.
Yeah, and Mike Tyson, when he was under the guidance of Kevin Rooney, when the old man Custom Model was still alive and Jimmy Jacobs was still alive, for the preparation that they gave him, nobody can beat that guy. That is prime Mike Tyson.
That is prime Mike Tyson.
Kevin Rooney was fired after the Spinks fight, okay? And then I forget the guy's name. Tyson's trainer for the Douglas fight. The guy looked like Urkel. Remember, he had that looked like a condom that had water in it. That's what he was using for ice. That's what he was using for ice or whatever. But they didn't have him prepared. He got dropped by Greg Page in sparring that week in Tokyo. Greg Page dropped Tyson.
There was reports saying that Mike Tyson they said he actually had like a stomach virus during that fight too. Did you ever hear that? I heard a rumor that Mike Tyson had a stomach virus going into that, but they didn't want to sit there and try to make excuses or something like that. That's what I had heard. I would have to go back and find where I got that from, but I do remember that came out probably maybe 2 to 3 weeks after the fight. And if he had a stomach virus, that would explain his lack of conditioning. Because if you're pooping, if you have a stomach virus, you're pooping and you're dehydrated and you're flushing everything out, that would give you a real smooth look. So that does make sense. But you hit the nail. You hit the nail on the head when you said Gus.
Yeah.
Because when Tyson was with Gus, he was a true wrecking machine.
Yeah. Well, Kevin Rooney was the trainer that D'Amato hand selected for Mike. He told Mike when he was 12 years old in that juvenile in Brownsville, Brooklyn. Didn't even know who Mike Tyson was. Didn't even know who he was. He went up and talked to him. He said, "Hey kid," he said, "I'm gonna get you out of here." And Mike didn't know who this old, Jewish guy was. He said, "I'm gonna get you out of here." He said, "You're gonna be the heavyweight champion of the world." He said, "You're gonna be the greatest fighter that ever lived." And Mike was just looking at him like, this guy's crazy or something, man. And he ended up, got him out like he said he was. He got him out of that juvenile center. He moved him into his home with his family. He said, "Listen, here's the deal. I got it written down. This is the deal. You stay with me for a year. Under my guidance, you do everything I tell you to do. And I got it written down here. After a year, if you're not happy here, you can leave." He said, "I will make you the heavyweight champion of the world. You'll be the greatest fighter that ever lived." And then he obviously said, "Okay, I'll live here." Did everything that he applied. And like I said, Kevin Rooney was his hand-selected trainer. And under Rudy's guidance, his record was 35-0, 31 knockouts. He had 21 knockouts in the first round. And that's prime Mike Tyson, okay? I mean, yes, he had a short prime, because I used to watch his fights on the USA Network when he wore the Adidas shorts.
I saw Mike Tyson on Fox when it was WSMH TV 66. I saw him fight a guy, and the guy rushed Mike Tyson. I don't even think Mike Tyson had 10 fights yet. He rushed Mike Tyson, and he was all over him, just swinging wildly. Mike Tyson took a step back, caught him with the body, hit him with the uppercut. The dude somehow stayed on his feet, went against the back ropes, fell down, match over, 30 seconds maybe. 30 seconds max. But going to Wilder and Tyson, have you noticed that Wilder struggles with somebody with actual boxing technique? If you have solid boxing technique and can elude a punch or two, you'll give him trouble. That's what happened with Fury. Fury eluded punches, and he beat him.
Boxing skill.
He outboxed him 100% of that match. Even the last round where he knocked him down and he sat back up like the Undertaker, even that round, he came back after that round and still dominated that fight.
Yeah. I think another reason, though, Wilder said what he said, because Tyson Fury was asked that question about Mike Tyson. You think you could beat Tyson's prime? He said, "No way." And Mike Tyson said, "I don't like that answer." He said, "I want you to be able to have the confidence, the ability that you can beat me." So maybe Wilder felt like he had to say something dumb like that.
It was dumb.
I don't agree with that. But the last thing I'm going to say about Mike Tyson is the best image that I've ever seen ever in my life in a sports capacity was after the Lennox Lewis fight. After he lost that fight, when it was like over, that was over. In the locker room, there's an image of him, man. It's very touching, man. There's an image of him. He's sitting there. He's still got his trunks on, got his eyes swollen, and he's holding his baby. He's just looking at his baby. That's like the best thing I ever seen. Well, Vince, I'll tell you what, man. That was that hour. We need more time. I'm going to have you again soon, though, okay? Because we're going to have a part 2. An hour is not enough time for you and I to discuss things. We'll have more interesting topics. Another thing I wanted to talk about was I have a friend down in Tennessee, Brent Hinson, who has a nice podcast with his son Xavier. They call it Conversations with Myself, a Journey of Self-Discovery. And I think Xavier Hinson is going to be the best podcaster in the world and the most successful author in the world. This kid has his father's genetics. He's very intelligent, but he also has a lot of originality to him. So everybody should go to YouTube and watch that. And Brent is he's an activist for Crohn's disease down there in Tennessee. He does walkathons. He just does a good job down there, and he deserves praise. He's one of my best friends. I grew up with him, and I just wanted to give him a little shout out. Now that concludes today with Vince Strange. I'm going to have him back soon, so you'll see him sooner than you think. We do have a YouTube channel that I would love everybody to subscribe to. Hit the like button. And if you want to listen to our show live, the D-Suite Nation, every Saturday at 3 o'clock, you can listen to us on Spotify. Man, there's a lot of them. I got to remember them all. Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Pocket Casts, Breaker, and Radio Public. Thank you for all your support. And Vince, hey man, always good to see you. I'm going to have you back whenever you want to come back. I know you have your military stuff you have to do and you have family obligations. So you let me know when you're ready to come back. We have to continue this. This is part 1. There's going to be a part 2. There's just not enough time with you, man. Okay?
All right.
Hey, God bless your family, man. Thank you for coming, man.
Go Blue.